Welcome to a special edition of Digging for Kryptonite, a Superman fan journey. I'm your host, Anthony Desiato. Joining me to discuss how we've been inspired by the character of Superman and comics in general is returning guest, Jeremy Frutkin. Welcome back.
Anthony, thank you so much. Happy to be here as always, my friend.
I'm so glad that you were not only game to do this, but you really kind of gave me the last little bit of encouragement I needed to do this episode. This will be probably the most personal episode, certainly that I've done, in terms of what I've shared on the show. Nothing overly dramatic. I don't want to build it up too much, but this was kind of born out of, again, this idea of the inspiration that Superman can provide, because I feel like in numerous episodes, myself and certain guests, we've talked about how Superman is this role model, Superman is this example, we derive inspiration, but the golden rule of writing, right? Show, don't tell. And it's like, sometimes it's hard, for myself, for guests to really pinpoint concrete, tangible, like specific instances where we've derived some inspiration. And I recently had an experience where I did genuinely derive inspiration from Superman, specifically a scene from the pilot of the Superman and Lois television series. It partially, but not in an insignificant way, motivated a recent career change for myself. So I'll lay it all out, but that's sort of the gist of what we'll be talking about. I do want to say, though, that there is an exception to what I just said. A couple episodes ago, my buddy Justin DeVoe, he was on the show. We talked about the black and white edition of Zack Snyder's Justice League. And, in the course of that discussion, we were talking a lot about the fandom kind of on both sides of the Snyder Cut movement. But in particular, we were talking about, we're fans of the Snyder Cut, and there have been people who, who don't feel the same way and are not shy about sharing that. And, Justin was talking about how, generally speaking, right, you don't want to dump on what other people like because you don't always know why they like it, why it resonates with them. And we had not talked about this ahead of time. I did not know he was going there, but he really bared his soul. I mean, he shared about, about growing up in an abusive house and how comics were this place that he could go, this escape in a really profound way. It was a refuge for him. And, he got choked up talking about it. I was right there with him. It was a really, really powerful moment. So I want to thank Justin for sharing that. And I also want to say, I heard from a bunch of people, some publicly on social media, but a bunch privately as well, who said that really struck a chord with them. So thank you to people who reached out. Thank you to Justin for sharing that. And also for, in part, inspiring me. Again, like I said, what I'm going to share is nothing, again, overly dramatic, but he did in part inspire me to kind of want to share a little bit as well. So thanks to Justin and thanks to the listeners. And of course, thank you to you.
Oh, of course. And I will second that. A big thank you to Justin for, it takes a certain amount of bravery to be open, especially open on a public forum like that. So it's my complete respect. And oftentimes when somebody does share something like that, you take a leap, and where you land, you realize you don't land alone, is something that I've noticed. And I think you hit the nail on the head. And I'm so glad to hear that this is resonating with other people because, yeah, we're on a podcast about comic books and other media involving superheroes. And it's easy just to kind of look at that quickly and be like, oh, it's a fun podcast. It's informative, which it is, all of those things. But we need to remember too, that we're all real people. And this is subject matter that we care about. And we wouldn't be putting in all this time if it didn't strike a true and meaningful chord with us. And I know for a fact that we're not alone, and it's cool to hear more people speak up about that.
Yeah, well said. I could not agree more. Before I kind of get into my little story here, I want to open the floor to you, my friend. I mean, and I know I had messaged you about this ahead of time, and I don't know what, if anything, you came up with, so there's no pressure on this. But I was curious, whether it's Superman related or otherwise, whether it's comic books or the adaptations, are there specific instances in your own life where you can kind of point and say, yeah, like I really took direct specific inspiration from something?
You probably already know what the first thing out of my mouth is going to be, is that, I like to come prepared. So I have two. I'm not gonna go long on this, but I did find two, and I actually found time even sitting here coming to you live from the Hilton in Greenville, South Carolina, to actually watch one of the things I'm talking about. So since I gave that little clue, I guess I'll start there. That sounds like a good place to start. So yeah, so I was thinking about it, and superheroes and superheroics have, especially over the past 15 10, 5 years, however you want to look at it, with all the movies that have been out and television adaptations, there is just so much popular media. I know so many different comic books have spawned movies that now relate to so many more people than they've had before, which, you know what? Say what you will. And I know there are people who are out there who are being like, oh, well, they're just watching the movies. They're not watching the comic books. The fact is that these characters and these stories are influencing more people than ever before, which is kind of the central theme of this get together that we're doing here. And I think that's wonderful. That being said, I thought I'd maybe choose two that growing up really resonated with me, that people, generally speaking, might not know. Something tells me listeners of this podcast, a lot of them are going to be familiar, but kind of a little more deeper cuts, if you will. No surprise here. You and I have talked about at length how much, growing up, I loved the whole kind of Tim Sale animated series universe.
Oh, the
I
Bruce
love,
Tim. Wait,
excuse me, the Bruce Tim animated
hey, a Tim
universe.
Sale animated universe would be pretty
That'd be
sweet as
fantastic.
well.
Well, that's from all of the four seasons we have on the mind still. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah, yeah,
still,
yeah, yeah.
whenever I see you, that light bulb goes off, which is a good thing. But so yeah, the Bruce Timm animated series leading up all the way to Justice League Unlimited, which produced some of what I think is some of the best episodes of animated television everywhere, but also one of my absolute favorites, which happens to be, and we've talked about him briefly before, how one of my favorite characters in all of comics is none other than Wally West. And the episode in particular, Flash and Substance in Justice League Unlimited, which is the fifth episode in season 3, is one that I found to be absolutely wonderful and beautiful. It was a Flash-centric episode, something we really hadn't seen too much of up until that point. And for a lot of the series, Wally, the Flash, is on the surface kind of comedic relief, is what he is. He's there to kind of lighten the mood, still always doing the right thing. But this was such a meaningful character study for me, somebody who won class clown in high school. I actually did win that superlative, which doesn't explain much because I'm sure I'm not very funny now, but still, you'll have to take my word on that one. So, what I thought it really spoke to me was throughout the whole episode, for anybody who hasn't seen it, first of all, go watch it. It's on HBO Max. I was able to fire it up here thanks to the app, which was awesome. It sounds like they're paying me. They're not. But it was very, very easy just to fire it up and watch that episode, which was great. Long and short of it is the Flash Museum's opening up, and he's super excited. He has some cute moments with him, Batman, and Orion is what the show centers around, which is already worth the price of admission. What a tremendous oddball trio that you have together. He is so excited about the Flash Museum opening, and of course, his rogues are going to naturally try to ruin it and get rid of him. And the episode centers on two things, really. One, Orion can't understand why Flash is not respected, why he seemingly thinks so much is a joke, why he's always bouncing around and is always happy when he's dealing with all of this strife. And two, that kind of paves the way for this real study of who Wally West is as a character, where by the end of it, when the Flash Museum gets completely destroyed, this thing he was looking forward to, he even got Batman to come to his event, which to him was like one of the great things. It's a great episode for Batman too, because my favorite versions of Batman are not the loner, more violent. It's the Batman who learned to accept others through his own personal trauma. It's another story for another day. So they're at the Flash Museum. They fight the rogues. It gets destroyed. This whole thing that Wally was looking forward to is completely gone and in shambles. TV crew comes up to him and just go, Wally, like, we're so sorry. You're our hero. This is supposed to be your day. It got destroyed. He makes a joke just saying, I got to be on TV. And you know how much I love that. They all laugh and he walks away. And Orion looks at him and says, now I understand. You do all of this act to mask a warrior's pain that you have on the inside. And they could have stopped there and been like, wow, like maybe Wally is really sad on the inside. But Wally just turns to him and goes, and I'm paraphrasing a bit here, excuse me, but he just goes, hey, we stopped the bad guys and nobody got hurt. At the end of the day, that's good. And that really struck such a chord with me. And throughout the episode too, he knows so many of the people in his city by name. He's talking about them, about their lives. And Wally West gives such a good example of not just like what a hero should be, but just what a decent human being should be. And that outlook, despite his own personal pain and strife, you see it how he treats his rogues. There's another scene where, you're laughing already, where they're at the bar with the trickster, and Orion and Batman are there, and Orion wants to beat the snot out of him, and Wally's like, "Guys, what are you doing?" And he sits down to him and just kind of goes, "Hey, have you been taking your medicine?" And he just says, "Oh, well, I only take it like when I feel that I might be in trouble." And he goes, "Come on, man, that's not how the medicine works. You got to take it all the time. Hey, listen, you tell me what's going on. I'll visit you. We'll play some darts together. We'll have a good time." And he tells him the information he needs. And that was such a powerful scene for me. I guess, especially considering myself now as an educator, with the idea that everybody you see doesn't have to be your enemy, that you can do your best to try to understand them. And that's something that really struck with me. Again, if you're watching and you haven't seen it, Flash and Substance is the name of the episode, Justice League Unlimited. You can find it on HBO Max. That's where I found it. I really encourage you to take some time to go watch it.
I was riveted as you described it, because I remembered the broad strokes of it, but not all of the specifics. So I was really enjoying your summary, and I do have fond memories of that episode. I guess I had forgotten a little bit more about the Orion part and like the final payoff, but the scene of him talking to his enemies, that I do remember, and that always stood out. And yeah, that overall message of like, we stopped the bad guys, no one got hurt, like, everything's okay. That's a good lesson to try to, to carry with you, move for all of us, because I know for myself, and I try to check myself as much as I can. Like when I find myself getting worked up about something, and, try to put it in perspective.
You and me both.
Yeah. But you found like that episode and like that moment with Wally, like, is that something you'll actually like actively think of from time to time?
Yeah.
In instances like that? That's awesome.
I work in a field where I regularly deal with students and people who's from that one example, whose days can be affected by if they're taking their medicine or not. Even just like that one line, it made you stop and think, like, whatever they're doing, whatever their behaviors are, that's just what's on the outside. We're not here for what's on the outside. We're here for what's on the inside. You don't win. Wally's the fastest man alive. He didn't win this battle by being fast or throwing punches or entering the Speed Force. He won these battles with empathy, by being a good human being. And that's, to me, what heroes do. And even if we, as mere mortals, don't always achieve that constantly all the time, it does give us something to strive for and something to kind of keep in mind.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, I mean, the way that Wally relates to his rogues, in the comics too, and especially in that episode, I did always appreciate that, because it's a different play on the dynamic than you would typically get. Like you wouldn't see Batman doing that with one of his enemies.
Which is cool that he's there while it's happening too. It's an interesting juxtaposition.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's like you wonder, like, does Bruce have any takeaways after seeing that?
Well, he does have that. And I know this because I just watched it. He has that one line where Orion just kind of looks at what Flash is doing, and he just says, "I don't understand." And Batman just looks at him and just goes, "No, you don't." So there's kind of like that undercurrent of like Batman does have this deep, somewhat begrudging respect for Wally as well too, which is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm long overdue, and at some point through this podcast, I will revisit Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, because I've seen all of them. I've seen the entire Tim verse, but it's been a while, and I know I'll enjoy going back to them. So I know you said you had a couple. That was the first. What was the other one?
I may have one more. I promise. Only one more. And
that's what we're here for.
It is so an interesting kind of cut, and I'll tie it all together with a nice bow that I actually didn't realize till I kind of sat down and thought about all this and wrote some of this down. My other moment that I want to talk about comes from Dick Grayson, and this comes from his run as Batman during the story Black Mirror by Scott Snyder, illustrated by Jock. Francesco Francavilla, one of my favorites. Full story, and I would love to talk at length with people about this. But Dick Grayson is my favorite Batman. And I know that's going to spark some interesting conversation. But like we just talked about with talking about, the Zack Snyder cut and all this stuff, I really enjoy those experiences and conversations because we learn a lot from each other. This kind of sums up why, the old writing rule, you show, you don't tell. This sums up why, just in a nutshell, in a snapshot, why he's my favorite Batman. It's the scene where they're on the roof where Dick Grayson as Batman goes to Commissioner Gordon, and Commissioner Gordon just kind of looks at him, and Dick asks, "Is something wrong, Commissioner?" And he goes, "No, I'm just not used to it yet." And he kind of goes, "Oh, not used to what?" And Commissioner Gordon goes, "You still being here when I look up." And that really struck such a chord with me, because even if you haven't read a whole lot of Batman comics, from the Batman movies or other media that Batman's whole thing when he's talking to Jim Gordon on the roof, a lot of times he gets the assignment, Jim Gordon keeps talking, he turns around, he's gone, stealthy, mysterious. This time, though, it's a different Batman. It's a different man. He turns around, and Dick Grayson's still there spending his time listening to him. And that showed to me such a strike contrast between the two, and also what kind of character and human Dick Grayson is. Both Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson lost their parents, marred by tragedy. And depending on which version you're getting of Bruce Wayne, most of the time, he's defined by that tragedy, and it affects him negatively as much as it inspires him to be a hero. Dick Grayson, however, did have the benefit of having Bruce, of having Alfred. He didn't let that tragedy define him. And instead, he's become and often referred to as, a lot of times as the glue of the DC universe as a whole, by being that guy that you can count on, that is always there for you. And, that's somebody I always want to be, even if I don't always succeed. And it's so funny. That's just one little scene where I guess if you were just like a more just, casual or general fan, you'd flip by that and be like, oh, that's a funny nod. But knowing the characters, that really struck such a chord with me. Like, Dick Grayson is somebody who wants to be there for everybody, who will take time out of his day to listen to somebody, even if he has other things to do, even if it's not convenient. And to tie that all together, I didn't realize it. Boy, I sure am a big Titans fan, huh? When I was kind of looking at this, and I was like, well, that's kind of interesting, because I really think my favorite part of a lot of DC stories is, and what I think DC Comics does better than anybody, to be perfectly honest, is taking these established mantles and roles and having characters grow up and grow into them over the course of many, many, many years. And there's no other place, no other medium where you can see a character start off as a kid, as a sidekick decades ago, and then inherit the mantle of their mentor. And it's such a powerful growing up lesson as well, too. And that I was like, wow, I guess that really does mean a lot to me as well, to kind of put a whole bow on it.
Yeah, just real quick technical note. If you could just avoid hitting the table, because I'm picking that up. But I love the passion.
You can tell I'm getting into it. I'm starting to talk with my hands a little bit.
I love the passion, and I couldn't agree more. That is, because I've always been a DC fan at heart. I think that's clear from anyone who's listened to any of my stuff. I've always been a DC fan at heart, and I do think that aspect of legacy is a big part of it, that you do have other people inherit the mantle and carry the legacy forward. That's why it always kind of bugs me when DC does its various, continuity cleanups and reboots and all that stuff, and those characters go away. I know Dan DiDio he's said this in interviews that he kind of had an issue with those Titans characters in particular. And I'm paraphrasing, but the gist of it was that his feeling was that their presence, especially when they move forward in their careers, kind of just ages their, their mentors to a degree that he found unacceptable. Because it's like, if, Dick Grayson is now a 25-year-old guy, it's like, how old is Bruce? I feel like that's not good enough of a reason to cast these characters aside. And that's why, I really had a hard time with the New 52 for a variety of reasons. But the way Wally in particular was just erased, it really bugged me. And again, I felt like it ran counter to what this can be. Even on the Green Arrow side, Connor Hawke, I think they might be doing something in the comics with him now, but he was off the board for a long time. And it's funny, even though with the example with Dick Grayson, and I love that moment too, and I love that Black Mirror storyline, and
Great stuff.
That was a great moment. And you're right. I mean, that's so perfectly encapsulated the type of Batman he is and how he's different than Bruce. But there was it was such a brief period, but there was a small window after Bruce came back before the New 52 where they were both Batman. They were both running around in different titles as Batman. Again, on the Green Arrow front, there was a time in the Kevin Smith, Brad Meltzer, Judd Winnick era where Ollie and Connor were both Green Arrow. So I mean, I do feel like there's room for both, and it adds a really interesting dynamic. So yeah, I love the aspect of legacy. I hate when its value is not really appreciated because I mean, it's the conversation we're having. Clearly it's meaningful to us and to other people. And again, I guess I just feel like there's enough room in all of these comics and all of these pages where you can have these characters. And I don't think it takes away from their mentors.
Hear, hear.
But that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing. It's funny because I was, I'll tell my story about my career move, but I was like, what else? Is there anything else I can really specifically point to? I'm sure that, in a way that I'm not necessarily conscious of and actively thinking of, but I'm sure that, the inherent goodness of Superman and the example he set, I'm sure that seeped into my own morality, in certain ways. Again, not really in specific ways I could really say like, oh, I do this or I don't do this because of Superman. I don't have those examples, but I'm sure it has. But it's a very silly thing. But one other example of how I've been directly inspired is wardrobe related. So I'm telling you, man, during the run of Smallville, I very consciously, this was not a coincidence.
Know exactly where this is going.
I very, very consciously modeled my wardrobe, my attire on what Clark was wearing, i.e. I was wearing a lot of blue t-shirts and red t-shirts and jeans, and that was about it. And mostly during college, because for high school, I went to an all-boys Catholic school. We had a dress code. Obviously, on the weekends and whatnot, I dressed myself, but it wasn't so much of a thing in high school. But during college and law school, usually whatever Clark was wearing, that's what I would be wearing too. So that, silly as it is, it did. I mean, it really did have an impact on how I went about my day.
You have photographs and proof, yeah.
Yeah. So, and it was, I'll say this too, it was a nice, easy look. The blue t-shirt and jeans. It didn't require much.
You really can't beat jeans in a t-shirt, man. You really can't.
Yeah. It got a little more complicated in season 8 of Smallville when Clark was now operating as the red blue blur. So people knew there was this hero in red and blue. And Jimmy Olsen started to put the pieces together, and he noticed, hey, Clark's always wearing red and blue. So Clark switched up his look, and now he was wearing like long sleeve white tees with like a gray t-shirt over it. So what do you think Anthony started wearing?
My guess is the same.
Same. So that, again, it's kind of goofy, but that was one other instance that I could think of where I could specifically point to being directly influenced by Superman. So
I love it. And there's photographic evidence.
There is. I don't, not a ton. I mean, I did, a few years ago, I took a photo and I called it cosplay, where I busted out the blue t-shirt and jeans. I don't know that I really have a ton of photos like from that specific time when I was doing that, because now we're talking over 10 years since the show was on. But yeah. So what I'll talk about now, before I talk about it, let me read a quote from the pilot episode of Superman and Lois, which I know you just watched, and I want to get your take on it. And I've talked about Superman and Lois on the show before. It's been the unexpected delight of my TV viewing season. I love it immensely. I'm so scared for its future. I hope that it stays as good as it has been or gets better. It's on the CW. It's in the Arrowverse. I'm a little nervous, but so far it's been great. I found it very meaningful, very moving. But there's a scene from the pilot between Clark and his teenage son, Jordan, whose powers are emerging. It's a bit of a spoiler, but I mean, that's the pilot. So hopefully I'm not giving away too much. And there's a scene between the two of them on the front porch of the farm. And Clark says something to Jordan in this scene that I couldn't shake it after I watched the episode. So this was going back to, I think January or February was when it aired. Clark says, I think about my dad a lot. how he was just heading off to church one day when a meteor crashed in his front yard. And just like that, he was a father. I didn't know it back then, but he had no idea what he was doing. But it didn't matter because he was always there. And like I said, I couldn't shake that, and that played into some recent moves that I've made. But before I say that, what was your take on the pilot? Because I know you just watched it for the first time.
I sure did. And I may have given you a little extra nudge to do this podcast, but you also gave me the little extra nudge I needed, as we've talked about before, to finally watch this pilot. And my goodness, it blew me away. It blew me away. And yeah, I guess the best way I can put it is that my one of my buddies messaged me after he saw me rave about it on social media and said, "Is it really good?" And I said, "Yes." But then I started thinking about why I really loved it. And I thought about, well, why you love it. And I think if you are a father or a family man, that this show is going to hit differently for you than otherwise. It's I was explaining to my wife when she was asking me, what I thought of it. And I said, I loved it because they're doing something that I've never really seen before, which is have Clark be the father of two teenagers. And just being, even though he is a father currently in the comics and stuff like that too, this is something that's new enough, especially in like a television format, that it really is effective, and it really spoke to me as a dad and as a family man myself. So if you're a Superman fan, watch it. If you're a comic fan, watch it. If you're a parent, definitely make sure you watch it.
I was so happy when I saw you post about it and you messaged me, and I figured you would like it for exactly those reasons. And I want to give a shout out to another one of my listeners, Doug. I was on his Instagram live show recently, Dougie Style on Instagram, and we talked all about this podcast and my Superman fandom, and we talked about comics, and we were talking about Smallville and Superman and Lois. And I said, and I might have said this on this show too at some point, but it bears repeating even if I did. It's amazing to me how the universe provided exactly the right Superman shows for me at exactly the right points in my life. Because it's never lost on me, and I know I say this all the time, but it's never lost on me that Smallville started and Clark was a freshman in high school exactly when I was a freshman in high school. And I'm sure I would have liked the show anyway, even if we were a few years apart. But the fact that we were on the same track, it definitely helped pull me in. And so what a gift that now, 20 years after the pilot of Smallville, I'm at a very different point in my life. But guess what? So is Clark. And, my son's 2. He's not 16 or however old the kids are supposed to be on Superman and Lois. But it's like now I get the show about Clark as a dad right after I've just become a dad. It's amazing to me how the universe provided those shows at those times. I appreciate it, and it's not lost on me.
You and I have the benefit of being approximately the same age as well too. So all of that, as you knew, this would be a layup for me for all of those reasons that you just listed. I'll just to give you a little more openness with me. One of the things that it's actually the quote that I posted on my social media accounts as well too, about Lois talking about how you when you think about a family, you don't think about all the stuff about parents gone too soon, having a child with anxiety, all that applies to me and my family as well too. So when she gave that whole speech, I had to stop dead in my tracks and be like, those moments where you feel like something's speaking to you directly, so my daughter is almost 2 as well. And having missed so much time due to the pandemic socializing, she definitely has a real hard time with adult strangers that she doesn't know. And, it's something that me and my wife are trying to work on safely as we can, things as they are, of course. But just hearing that line as well too, my wife and I just had a conversation, she gets really anxious around adults, what are we going to do? And as soon as I heard that line, half hour later after I had that conversation, it really, really struck a chord with me. And, I guess you kind of said it best. You just got to thank the universe for kind of giving us these little, beacons of light when we need them.
Yeah, I'm glad the show was able to provide that. And no, I mean, we're in exactly the same situation as far as having, pandemic kids,
Yeah.
baby,
Yes.
So Autumn, she's almost, so when was she born?
So she was born in October
Okay.
2019. She'll be 2 this October.
Okay.
So she's getting there. But yeah, so she really was only around for 2 or 3 months. I live, I grew up close to you, of course, in New York. But I've lived down here in South Carolina with my family for about 3 or 4 years. There's still, I'd say the majority of my friends and family members still haven't even met my daughter yet due to the pandemic, which has been hard, which I hope certainly changes. But that's the least of my concerns. You got to put stuff like that, and you look at the big picture, of course, kind of put that to the side. But
Like Wally
yeah, I
West.
mean, like, well, like, look at that. See, there you
See?
go. Look at you putting a bow on it. I don't even realize it's in there sometimes. But it's the reality of our situation. But just hearing those lines, that are more real and alive as they could be, and almost like you said, the most pivotal time to hear them is astonishing.
Yeah. And well, so that, I mean, that's a perfect segue to, to my journey here. So our son Milo, he'll be 2 in later this month in August. So we're recording this
It's exciting.
early August. It'll go up on the 11th, and on the 23rd, he'll turn 2. So we had half a year before the pandemic, before everything shut down. And at that time, or for that period of time, between vacation days and family leave, my wife and I were able to work it out where initially it was both of us home with him, and then we were trading off basically until March of 2020. And because I did my leave, my main leave after she did. So like I was off for the beginning part of 2020, and I was just getting back into the office. And we both work at Pace Law School in White Plains. We both attended there at different times as students, and then both started working there. And that's how we met and got to know each other. And so before the pandemic, we were working out all of these plans basically for the rest of that academic year. And we sort of figured that between, remaining vacation time and family leave and grandmothers, that we would be able to have childcare at home like until the end of that academic year. And then we would sort of cross that bridge as far as what we were going to do with Milo. Now, before I go any further in this story, I want to put out this disclaimer, because when I talk about daycare, which I will in a moment, I am in no way, shape, or form trying to project my feelings, my thoughts on daycare on anyone else. And I'm not saying it's bad or it's not a good choice, and it might be exactly the right choice for you or for any other family out there. As I move forward in this, I'm only speaking for myself and what my goals and my preferences were for our son.
It's too expensive. Can we all agree on that?
That is one thing that I don't
Let's
need to
all
be.
let's all hold hands and agree on that real quick. Too
Yeah,
expensive.
so I'm not going to be diplomatic about that part, and that's something that
Yep.
I do think any parent can identify with. So here's the thing: as we
Here,
talk
here.
about this for the next couple of minutes, the parents out there are going to be like, they're going to know exactly what we're talking about, and the people who don't are going to get an education, I guess. So
Take notes the way that I take notes, because I wish they had taught me this when I was growing up in school. I wish they had taught me about taxes, about daycares and how expensive they are. It's like a second mortgage. It's terrible. That aside, let's
yeah,
proceed.
listen, well, I mean, we can put a number on it. I'll say in this New York tri-state area. And I credit to my wife; she did the research on this. I'll spout the number as if I did it myself, but no, she did. Approximately, I know it ranges, but approximately here, what we would be looking at 20 grand for the year. What is it? How does that compare with where you are?
So we were paying, and keep in mind the cost of living is much less in South Carolina, but we also get paid less in South Carolina in comparison to New York. It was costing us about $800 a month because Autumn was actually in daycare for like a hot 6 weeks before the pandemic hit. So it was costing us like 800 a month. And of course, when the pandemic hit, and again, everybody's, decisions are completely their own. Like you said, we're not projecting any of our own personal views. But the daycare in March of 2020 just closed down like so many other places did. And once we had her at home, we realized like this was basically just neutralizing one of our paychecks or close to or a big enough chunk after taxes where it's like a serious problem. So, what my wife and I do now is I always joke that we're two happily married single parents. My wife actually my wife actually watches our daughter Autumn 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, while I work. And then my wife goes. She's an X-ray technologist at MUSC, one of the bigger hospitals in South Carolina. She works there on the weekends. So we kind of switch and hand off. And we've each been able through this pandemic to be there for Autumn while having our paychecks come in. And is it easy? No. But when daycare costs that much, it's just like we'd rather just, save the money, especially when such a long period of time things were closed down anyway.
Yeah, no, and I know you and I had messaged about that, about the cost of daycare. I mean, it definitely was surprising to me. It was a similar thing I experienced when I was talking with one of my friends from our old comic shop, and his kids are now finishing up high school and heading into college. But I remember he and I spoke a few years ago when they were looking at high schools. And I mentioned before, I went to an all-boys Catholic school. I went to Iona Prep in New Rochelle. And I remember generally what the tuition was like in 2001 to 2005. And when he was telling me what the tuition was like now, I couldn't believe it. I mean, unless my math was like so off, or my memory was so off, the price like quadrupled in the time. So yeah, that was very educational. So, the cost was definitely something that, we were keeping in mind. And, but also, and again, this is where, again, I'm not projecting anything onto anyone else, but it was and has been and remains important to me that if possible, if we're able to work it out where we can be home with, one of us can be home with him, that is preferable to me. He'll be in school soon enough and all that stuff. And we're totally on board with classes and play dates and all that stuff. It's, pandemic stuff aside. But as far as just like dropping him off all day, every day, I couldn't do it. If I could avoid it. The way things broke, everything worked out really nicely. It might have broken a different way, and that would have been fine. And there's a place right down the street from us. That's one that, from everything we've seen and heard, is great. So, again, I'm not poo-pooing daycare generally. It was just that I really wanted to try to find a way. And I guess going back to Superman, if I've learned one thing from Superman, it's like there's always a way. But I'll come back to that. So, March 2020, everything shuts down. All the plans that we had for the rest of that academic year for vacation and family leave and grandmothers, and that all went out the window. And for a year and a half, my wife and I have both been working fully remotely. And I want to echo what you said. And I'll give a shout out to Pace. I mean, we really, it was not lost on us. We really appreciated that we kept our jobs, got our paychecks, were able to do everything from home.
Absolutely.
There were periods where the school was like closed, and then there over the past months, people have been going in on a very limited basis, and our supervisors have been accommodating to us as far as doing our work from home, and we've been able to work from home and produce and everything. But we really have been very appreciative of that. So, but again, we've been home now with him for so long, and we knew that eventually we'd have to figure something out. But it was just sort of like, okay, like we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And then I guess early 2021, as it seemed like the end of the pandemic, might be in sight.
Oh boy,
it forever seemed, it's like you got it at some point, and then we keep having these setbacks. But that's something else. But I guess it was around that. It was probably around that time. I would say early 2021, where I was thinking more seriously about, okay, like, what are we going to do when we do have to go back? And, hand in hand with that, around the same time, was that Superman and Lois pilot, and that scene with Clark and Jordan. And, at the beginning of this episode, I said I was inspired, partially, because again, all of these feelings were in my mind already, and the idea of being as present a father as possible, I didn't need that scene to tell me that. I've already felt that. But sure, those words in particular, it just really stuck with me. And I think it's a beautiful sentiment. And I think it's something that, I think dads should take to heart, because it's like, I think about this a lot, and I don't know where you fall on this, but like, well, I know you as a teacher, you'll be plenty fine helping Autumn with schoolwork.
Job never ends.
Yeah. I feel relatively confident myself with most subjects. We'll see in certain areas, but I think, I'll be able to help Milo with the schoolwork, and, certainly if he wants to get into comics and TV and movies and all that stuff, I'm there for that. Sports though, I'm going to need, I would be a little bit behind there. I'm a little deficient. Basketball is fine. I can do that. Otherwise, It'll be a little tricky for me.
You got to know your strengths. That's what it's all about. Knowing your
Yeah.
strengths.
Yeah. I'm not handy. So I wouldn't be the dad like teaching him how to hang stuff or fix things
There's no
necessarily.
way my wife is listening to this, nor does she making it. How far in? Are we 45 minutes in? So she's never going to hear this, but I say it all the time anyway. My wife is far more handy than I am. She
Mine
grew
too.
up with a very handy family, so shout out to her. Again, we have that in common.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. It was a very safe space here. Yeah. No, my wife is way handier
Yeah.
than I am, and I tip my hat to her, and that's wonderful. So again, I guess my point is like I know there are things that as he's getting older that I think I will do well in teaching, and other things not as much. But just that idea of like you just be there. And look, even if he were in daycare and I'd still be home at night, it's not like I wouldn't have any time with him, but just that idea of just being there like as much as possible. And I guess going back to the specific example of Superman and Lois in particular, it's like, they leave Metropolis. I mean, he gets fired from his job. And then Lois quits, but they make the active choice to move back to Smallville and live on the farm and be together. And so, like I said, I couldn't shake that. And that remained in my head. And I was like, I was very adamant. I was like, I'm going to find a way to work from home. And I applied to a lot of stuff and nothing really panned out. Although I want to share this with you because I think this is another area where you and I have common ground, and I think you'll appreciate this. I know you'll appreciate this. So most stuff I applied to didn't really go anywhere. There was one place where I got pretty far in the interview process. And in the end, I actually realized it wasn't going to be the right fit. But in the first interview, on my resume, all the Flat Squirrel production stuff is listed. I have my documentaries, and it's all listed there. And at one point in the interview, one of the interviewers said, like, oh, so are you, like, I see all of this on your resume. Like, are you trying to be a documentary filmmaker? And this isn't something I would have said in the past, but I've gotten to the point now where I feel strongly enough about it. And I said it diplomatically and politely, but I said, well, I am a documentary filmmaker.
You're damn right you are. You're damn right. Anthony, perfect response. That is the correct response. 10 out of 10. And then, as you know, I'm also a fan of, you plug it. And you tell them where to go watch it, and you tell all your friends. It's on Curiosity Stream, Amazon Prime. Go ahead and look it up, all that good stuff.
But it's because I know, you are a fellow creative. You're an actor. You were just actually, let's plug this, because you were in a Manscaped commercial.
Yes, I was certainly was a little bit different than producing a whole documentary, but yes, in the same ballpark, if not the same base. But yes, I was, and a lot of fun stuff, and getting a lot of views and a lot of traffic. Everybody seems happy with it, so that's been really cool.
Yeah, it's hilarious, and you're featured very prominently, which I was happy to see. And so for anyone, they can go to like the Manscaped Facebook page, right? And it's up there.
It'll be there. It's the Alex Zedra Manscaped commercial. We're all playing soldiers, and thank you for that, for the plug, the support, and I appreciate it as always, my friend.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was so glad that you were able to do that. But I guess a similar type of thing, right? I mean, because I think for both of us, right? Like we do have day jobs. Right. Mm-hmm. But you were just in this commercial, like and that's the thing. And I guess it did take me a while to get to this point where it's like, no, it's true. I don't make my living by making documentaries and podcasts. And that would be great. I guess if the question is like, is that my ultimate goal? Sure. But
same thing with me in acting.
Right. But at the same time, it's like, like you're doing this commercial. It's like, I'm making stuff and I'm getting it out there the best way, to the best of my ability and the best I can. So it's like, yeah, I don't look at it as like, oh, I'm trying to be a documentary filmmaker. It's like, no, like I make documentaries. They're out there. You can watch them. So,
yep. And anyway. You summarized my whole philosophy. We can be more than one thing. And we're also not defined by where our biggest paycheck comes from. And so I've been acting for over 2 decades now. I started when I was 15. I'm 36 now. So I've been at this for a long time. And just the fact that I've been doing this long, I already consider a tremendous blessing, just being so fortunate. But that's because I've always I always had the deal that allegedly, I don't know if this is true or not, that Brad Pitt had with his parents, where he was like, I'm going to be an actor. And they're like, cool, you either have to get a degree or get a full-time job first. And then when you're not doing that, you can practice everything else. And that wasn't because they didn't believe in him, but it's because you need to have a way to pay the bills and to take care of yourself. And I have plenty of students who come to me and I say, hey, one of my favorite questions to always ask a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? And 9 times out of 10, maybe not 9, maybe like 7 or 8 times out of 10, one of the first things out of their mouths is, I'm going to be a YouTuber. And I have to tell them, be like, that's great. You should do that when you're not in school or you're not working. You should dedicate all your extra time to that. And I realize now how maybe down the road, when they get a little older, how funny that's going to sound when they go to the Digging for Kryptonite YouTube page and they see that I was on YouTube this entire time. But do as I say, not as I do. No, actually do as I say, because I was there teaching them. And on our off time, we're creating. And that's the thing. You don't just have to be one thing. No person is just one thing, nor are we defined by our career or our jobs. And anytime you have the ability to create, listen, look, I'm sitting here 3 hours from where I live in a hotel in Greenville, South Carolina. I'm doing this podcast with you because this is something that I legitimately love and I enjoy. And that in itself quantifies it enough to being like, this is a podcast. This is real. You love making that documentary. That documentary was damn good too. Obviously, I'm biased, of course. You could argue. But I've told plenty of people to go watch and everybody's like, yeah, it's really, really good. If you love something and you work at it, you become that. That's all it takes. It doesn't take dollars or cents, or that doesn't qualify you or what you love. It's what your passion is.
I appreciate the kind words, and no, I agree with all of that. And it's funny because like if you go to, and obviously you and I are Facebook friends. Like if you go to my Facebook, my personal page, you have the little bio up top, and it says documentary filmmaker and podcaster. Like that's, it doesn't say like law school, administrator.
Yeah.
That's not how I see myself. It is what I do, and I'm proud of the work that I've done and I take it seriously, but it's not, again, I guess what I identify with in my heart, like doing this sort of thing, like this is where the passion is. And that's where I really have the love for that. But at the same time, it's like, the quote unquote day job. That's how I pay the bills and, help provide for my family. And I'm happy to do that. And, but anyway, but I had that moment in the interview, and I thought of you. I wanted to throw that in there because I knew you would identify with that. It's similar to, this hasn't happened really much, and definitely not in a long time. But if and when someone refers to this other stuff as a hobby, that's not how I would describe it. I'm not so offended by it, but that does irk me a little bit.
This is not a hobby because. For many reasons. The first one that I will give is that there's a certain level of professionalism and dedication that you brought to your documentary that you bring to this podcast. It's one of the many reasons, aside from obviously, our friendship and myself enjoying working with you so much. It's just like your professionalism. But I always tell my wife, and I'm not going to throw anybody else under the bus, but I've been on a bunch of podcasts, and you have the same drive and professionalism that I do. You can tell that you care because you schedule things in advance. You think about things. You have it mapped out. And some people are listening to this and are laughing. But let me tell you, you would be shocked about how far ahead of the game that puts you alone. It really, truly does. But you do that because you take this seriously, because it's your passion, like you said. And to me, it's cool hearing somebody else in a very similar boat as myself say that out loud. But even if you didn't say it, I would know it, because it's just how you conduct your documentary. It's how you conduct this show. You can see how seriously you take it, how much you love it. It speaks for itself.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. And yeah, I mean, that's, it does. I mean, I do care, and it does mean a lot to me. And so, I look at, reading comics as a hobby. That's something that's, just, fun. And I, read, I mean, although now it's like I read primarily for the show, so that's kind of changed a little bit. But
now we have homework. Sometimes.
Now it's yeah, I know.
Fun homework, but still.
But that's sort of how I would consider what I would consider a hobby to be, in any event. So that was one little stop on the journey as I was trying to sort this out. And along the way, I was also, because I am a big believer, and I got this from my old boss at our old comic shop about having a backup for the backup of the backup. So I'm really big into multiple contingencies. And I feel like if you have enough different paths you can go down, something will work out. So I was also simultaneously kind of proposing to my then current supervisor at work some sort of like hybrid work schedule for our entire team where, we would each come in like a couple of days per week and we would still have coverage for the office and the rest of the time we'd be working from home. And, if my wife was able to do the same thing in her department, we would have our week covered. So I was kind of working on that, and it seemed like that was promising. I never got a firm answer on that. And I will say there did come a point where, I was getting frustrated in my search, in my job search. Like, again, nothing was really panning out. And I was applying to like a lot of like copywriting jobs, things that really could be done remotely. And on the writing side, like that's something that I have that skill set and I would find it interesting enough. There are like podcast producer jobs out there as well. Like I saw a bunch of stuff like that. Again, nothing that, for all the podcasts that I've done, I guess in the end, it didn't really amount to much in that realm, but that's okay. But so I was applying
they're a loss.
Wow. But I was applying to a bunch of stuff and, really wasn't panning out. And again, if I stayed in my current position, I didn't know, what that would look like. And I was getting kind of frustrated, and I went to one of my sanctuaries. Again, something you'll appreciate. We're really, you and I, man, we're like cut from the same cloth here. I was in the garage gym. And do you follow The Rock on Instagram or any social media?
Of course. I think you, me, and I think approximately half of the free world follow The Rock on Instagram. But yes, of course. And also a big garage gym enthusiast, as I am too. So yeah.
It's so good.
And it really is. Kids asleep, go get it.
That's it. I've never been so you do it at night as well?
Well, I'm going to switch now. So my new virtual teaching gig, I actually don't start till 8, and my commute is significantly shorter because I have to walk into the next room essentially. So I'm going to switch to mornings. But for the past year, Autumn goes to bed 7:15, 7:30. I take a few deep breaths. I kind of pump myself up and say, okay, I can do this. And I go and I hit the garage gym. So here to that.
Nice. Yeah. I've never been a morning exerciser. It's just never, with some exceptions over the past decade plus, but for the most part, it's always been at night. And like if it's a matter of doing it at 7 a.m. or like 11 o'clock at night, I'll do it at night. And I have done that. But The Rock, he always talks about the gym as his anchor. And that obviously works for him. It works for him. For me though, I kind of look at it more as a pillar. Like I always look at the gym, my family first. We start with the family. I wasn't listing in order.
Good save.
But like family, gym, and Flat Squirrel Studios here as kind of like 3 of like the main pillars in my life. Cause that's like, the family nourishes the soul, the gym, the body, and then here it's the mind, I guess, and that creative spirit, like, and so I need all of those, and I find like if I miss too many workouts, I notice my mood change. Do you experience that too?
Without a doubt. My wife will notice it if it ever happens. And it doesn't happen that often because my wife would describe me as lovingly obsessive, I think, with the many things and passions that I have, and working out, being one of them. But yeah, that's the reason why I'm so strict. I'll be up before I have, more professional development tomorrow at 9. I got my alarm set for 6 already. I'll be up in the hotel gym with my mask on working out because I need to get it in. I have nobody to impress anymore physically. I'm a happily married man. I work in predominantly comedies, which I'm thankful for. That gives me some nice flexibility there. I work out, and you hit the nail on the head because of how it makes me feel and how it really does feel like it sharpens my mind. It puts me in a better mood. I feel like all of that stress that maybe sometimes I internalize a little too much, and I don't often let seep out. Maybe I can put it somewhere. I can put all of that energy somewhere. And I agree completely with that. And if I don't do it, I definitely, same as you, I see a definite change in my mood, and not for the better.
Yeah, I guess, especially over the pandemic, I've noticed it more. And I had a real rough go because we moved last July. Prior to that, we were living in an apartment building, and there was a gym, and then that shut down. and I was down to just like dumbbells that I had in our apartment. And I also had this wrist injury I was dealing with. And then it took a while until I got everything set up in the new place, and I got through the injury, and I really got back into it. So I was like really out of it for a while. It was the longest I started working out in my freshman year of college when I was 18. And this was the longest that I went. I mean, it was like really a few months where I really didn't do anything. And I hated that feeling. I really, really hated it. You know, but I guess I'm glad that I did. Because it could have gone the other way where I could have been like, oh, this is nice. I don't have to think about it. And then
That's
I kind of didn't get back into it. But I was like, I got to do this. And I do notice that like my mood, does, it's not like I turn into a monster, but it's like my mood does worsen. You got to have, again, going back to, I'll pull Smallville in here. When, at the start of season 10, one of my favorite scenes, I've mentioned this on a bunch of episodes, when Clark sees a vision of Jonathan. And Jonathan's like, you've all this, all this anger, like it's got to come out somewhere. So,
exactly right.
To kind of just have that release is really important. But I remember at one of those points where I was getting frustrated with this job search, and I was in the garage gym, the Steel Fortress, as I call it, not the Iron Paradise was the Rock, but I go Steel Fortress.
It's a great name.
And I literally talked to myself. Like if you walked by the garage, you would have heard me talk. I was literally talking to myself, and I was like, listen, this will work out. You'll find a way. You're doing everything that you can do. And, worst case, if it doesn't, and, you put them in daycare, that's fine too. But I was like, you'll make this work. And you got to calm down. And it helped.
I'm gonna hit you up next time I feel that way, because I think having that pep talk is so important. But you know what? You make a really good point, because sometimes by even just saying something out loud, you give it life.
Yeah,
you're like willing it into existence. So I can get behind that. I can dig that.
So as far as another comic book inspiration, because I've talked about this when we've talked about the Snyder Cut, but I really did derive specific inspiration from this too. Not Superman, but Bruce Wayne in Zack Snyder's Justice League is a man.
The second best Batman.
Yeah. I mean, although I don't know, who do you go with number one? Are you
Dick Grayson?
I'm sorry. I thought.
That was a call back from earlier.
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the actors. That's immediately where my mind went.
That's the normal conversation to have with that. Like I said, I went for the deeper cuts. Proceed.
But in Zack Snyder's Justice League, Bruce is a man operating on pure faith throughout the movie. And there are, throughout the 4 hours, virtually every character questions him and or doubts his plan and or the plan's likelihood of success at some point in that movie. And at every turn, Bruce's response is like, it'll work out. It has to. Like when they're about to go fight Steppenwolf for the big final battle, and Alfred is wondering, like, is Superman going to show up? And Bruce is like, he'll be there. He's just so sure. And I'm not saying like you should have blind faith no matter what you do, but there was something about that too, that like I couldn't shake. And my wife and I had this conversation because there were times in this job puzzle where, I don't want to say she was doubting, but she was asking all the right questions. Like, well, how is this going to work? Like, what, why, like basically like, why do you think this is going to happen? And I said to her, I was like, I can't explain it. I said, but I really just feel like it will. And I feel like I manifested this. I'm not going to lie. I really feel like if ever someone willed something, I feel like I did.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of truth and a lot of power to that. A lot of positivity. You helped push it into existence, depending how you want to look at it. You can either say you manifested it into existence, or you got yourself into a space where you were able to focus and accept more paths and more information coming to you to achieve your goals. However you look at it, I mean, the results don't lie.
Yeah, there's something to that. And as far as just paths, I mean, one of the things I did was I let people know. I mean, I reached out to like a few, not, wasn't like bombarding people, but like a few people who I thought might have a lead on something. Like I guess I was putting stuff out there. Like I was putting it out there that this was something. And I just had this sense that like something will work out. And sure enough, it did. And from the unlikeliest of places, my current job, my current employer pays. A fully remote, full-time position became available. There was someone who had a part-time version of that job previously, and they were in the process of building it into a full-time position, and then she left, and it needed to be filled. It's manager of assessment and advising. So it has a lot to do with the law school's accreditation accreditation maintenance and assessment of. I know you know well about the
I know about
side.
accreditation. I sure do.
And also just like big picture, the assessing the learning outcomes. Are our students learning what they're being taught? And this became available, and I'll be working with our academic dean, who I took one of her classes when I was a student, and we've been obviously colleagues, even though I haven't been working directly with her, but we have a great working relationship. And I genuinely think it'll be interesting because it's a more big picture look at the school, at a higher, institutional level, and you see kind of how, because I've been in admission, so I've been in one specific area that's a big part of the puzzle, big piece of the puzzle, but there are all these other sides as well. So I think it'll be interesting. And on top of that, it's fully remote, and generally speaking, and maybe this will change after the pandemic, I don't know, but generally speaking, there aren't a ton of those at the school. So again, it ended up coming from a very unlikely place, but it worked. And as we record this, I've officially started in that position, although I'm currently splitting my time until we get through the orientation for the new students. So it's been a little intense because I'm wrapping up the old job and getting into the new job. And the law school actually has its ABA site visit this fall. So, and there's stuff that's due in September. So it's like really jumping into it.
Right into it, yeah.
But it affords the flexibility that I was looking for, and I'm just really grateful for the opportunity and that it came about. And again, one of the things that kind of kept me on that path was that scene with Clark and Jordan on the front porch of the farm, like talking about Pa Kent and how he didn't always have all the answers. He really didn't know what he was doing, but he was there. He was just there, and that was enough. And so, it's still a little surreal because this was going on for so long and I didn't know what would come of it. And that's where we are.
Oh, congratulations. Very,
Thanks.
very much well-deserved. And such an inspiring story, both from how comics and their adaptations can inspire us, but even your story, I think, is incredibly inspiring. Talking about that faith that things will work out, like reaching out to others in a time of need by not just withdrawing and kind of manifesting this destiny to come into existence. So it's a tremendous story and well deserved. I'm very happy for you, for your family.
I appreciate that very much. And, I hope our audience enjoyed this. Again, this is a little different type of episode, and this is kind of a bonus, I guess, because last week people heard our episode on the morality and ethical duty of Superman, and next week they'll hear our episode on For Tomorrow with a real life pastor, as originally planned. So this episode is a little extra one, but I thought it was important. Again, it's like we just talk about Superman. I mean, that's what the whole show is about, but it's like to really be able to say like, no, like this is actually an instance where it really meant something to me in a way that had an impact on my life. I mean, in terms of how I spend my time, how I make my living. So yeah, I'm glad we were able to, to put that out there. One follow up, it's funny, man, when you were talking about, like for both of us, right? Having the creative side and then also having the day job and not being one thing. I mean, is that not like a superhero with a disguise?
I was going to say it. I was going to say the whole Clark Kent, by day. Oh, I have to go now. But it is. In like a structural sense, it is. But I also think that we're not one thing, but we are also both of those things. Kind of like how Clark is both Clark and Superman. So I do think that duality exists in all of us. And I think you do a good example of embracing it. because that's what you should do. You can't just tell people that you're always just one thing. We have layers as human beings. We have layers. But yeah, when we hear something halfway across the world and we have to jump out the window and do a quick change, or when we see the bat signal in the sky, or when you pop the costume out of your ring, you got to go.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, and yeah, I don't. Not that I look at it like a secret identity, but I do without,
This would be the worst secret identities you and I would have of all time. We're public figures, more or less. You and I, we're not doing a good job. We're worse than Daredevil, if that's even possible, of keeping our secret identities.
Very true. But no, that's the thing. It's like, and not to psychoanalyze myself too much, but yeah, I do kind of wonder if, like, all these years reading and watching Superman, this character with these two sides. I mean, really three. I won't get into my whole thing about Clark on the farm, but like really having like these two main sides. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if subconsciously, like, that sort of planted this idea of like being multiple things, or maybe I would have arrived there anyway. I mean, it's not like it's so rare, but I don't know. I can't help. If nothing else, it probably helped. Like, maybe it reinforced something that was already there, that it's like, yeah, you can be multiple things, to multiple people. Interesting. It's an interesting idea.
It certainly is. It certainly is. I want to throw just a quick aside as well, too. I want you to know that when I was watching Superman and Lois, this will be of no surprise, but after our marathon podcast session, with all of the origins of Superman that we went over, the first few minutes of that episode, I was like, oh, okay, he's coming in as a baby in this one. Pa Kent dies of a heart attack. And I started writing down notes, and I was like, Jeremy, what are you doing? What are you doing? This is not what this is about. I'm so ingrained in, like, noticing the details of Superman origin stories that immediately put, like, a flag in my head, which I think is kind of cool. It's given me a whole new frame of reference and knowledge that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So I thought that was funny.
That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, just as a reminder, if anyone needs it, you were on the episode that holds the record for longest episode that I've ever done. When we talked about the post-crisis origins across time and media. That was a true match. We didn't take a break. I mean, that was a true for over 3 hours.
And that's one of those things too, where we didn't set out to do something like that. It literally just, to me, organically flew by. Like, to me, I felt like we were talking for 45 minutes, an hour.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and that whenever we end up with these, mammoth episodes, and this is not one. We're just over the hour mark, and I think we'll sign off in a few minutes. So this won't be one of those. But whenever those really long episodes happen, A, I hope people enjoy them. But B, it's like the goal is I never sit down and I'm like, okay, we're going to talk for 2 hours or 3 hours. It is just what happens in those instances. And so, yeah, I really think that speaks to, again, the passion that we have for the material and how much there is to dissect. And again, the thing I always come back to is if it doesn't feel that long to us, hopefully it doesn't for the audience. And so, while we have it, it's so funny. I feel like I'm like, oh man, it's only an hour. I'm like, we got 2 more hours to fill, Anthony. We got 2 more hours to fill. I feel like I got so much time. No, but I will give just a heads up about you're going to be on the show again very soon. That's right. So we are going to do. I'm looking at my Excel list in my head here. So people will actually hear you next. Later in August on the Patreon exclusive companion show, you and I are going to talk about the new The Suicide Squad movie. So excited. I can't wait. Yeah, I'm sure we'll have a lot of thoughts on that. And then in September, so you're going to be part of my 8-part weekly event, Crisis Till Death, where I'm looking at this period of Superman after Crisis on Infinite Earths, up to and including the death and return of Superman. And you are going to be there for part 3. We are going to do a deep dive into the 1988 Ruby Spears cartoon, the short-lived 13-episode entry in the Superman animated canon. I did a little mini episode on it months and months ago, where mostly I just expressed shock that the show existed. I didn't know about it. Do you remember our first talk about that episode? That yes, yeah, yeah.
You said to me like, oh, like, I actually didn't know this episode existed until I looked into it, and my response was, I didn't know this existed until you just told me right now. So
Yeah, it's this this little gem in the Superman mythology. And so but for this episode coming up, we're going to watch and talk about all 13 episodes. So I think that'll be really interesting. I'm excited to do that. So that's still coming up, and I'm sure
and
we'll can.
I'll throw this out real quick if you're listening to this and that sounds like something that might interest you. And Anthony told me this, which is awesome. There is a zero cost of investment to the grand majorities of these episodes. They're on the free streaming app Tubi.
Yep.
So you can go on Tubi, just type in Superman. It'll be one of the first animated ones that pops up. You'll be able to get there free of charge. I would love for some of our viewers to kind of check it out and kind of listen along with us because we're going to have some interesting and fun thoughts, I think, about this. We're going back to the 80s again, which is always a tremendously fun time for Superman.
Yeah, I'm really excited to dive into that. I actually bought the DVD set.
Awesome.
I decided, I was like, let me just go for it. But yeah, Tubi is a great free option, and they have, I think, 10 or 11 out of the 13. Like they're missing.
I believe it's 11.
Yeah, they're weirdly missing a couple. I don't know what the story is there, but that's perfectly fine. We'll have plenty to talk about. But I was like, I'll just get these. So yeah, I have all 13. I'm especially curious those two that are missing. If there's anything that's like really noteworthy about those. But I'll let you know.
I'm definitely very, very curious as well too. I've a little inside baseball. I've watched all 11 on Tubi already. So I'm up to speed and all that, but I really have to seek out, I think, and figure out what it is exactly about these two episodes, like why they're not on there. I have plenty of more questions, so I'll leave it at that for now, but go check it out. It's cost $0, 0 cents. They're quick episodes that I think without, too many ad breaks or anything that they run to be about 23, 25 minutes a pop. Give it a look. It's actually some pretty interesting and fun stuff. And again, it costs no money out of your wallet to look.
I gotta tell you. So I'll confess, I was not familiar with Tubi before.
Me neither.
Before I found out. So I wasn't familiar with Tubi. And then I searched, again, this was before I bought the DVD, but I searched like the Ruby Spears cartoon streaming. And it came up there, and my first thing, and I guess maybe I'm not that plugged in, but generally I am pretty plugged into all these streaming services and everything. And when I saw that, I'm like, is this like a piracy? Because I'm like, I don't play with the the piracy, because I don't want people to do that to my own work.
Absolutely.
And that's only part of the reason. But I was like, is this like a legit thing? That was my first thought. I'm like, because it's free. But yeah, it is a free streaming service. It's ad supported, and you don't even have to create an account. So, and we're not sponsored in any way by Tubi. Although, it's funny whether it's HBO,
Anthony.
That's the thing. HBO Max, Tubi, we talk about all these things. The friggin' DC app. If any of these places want to come forward,
please. We would be generous enough to let you sponsor the show. We would, out of the kindness of our hearts, we would do that. But
I think I've trashed the DC app enough. I don't think that will ever happen. Wait till you hear some of the upcoming episodes. I really go on like some rants about it. It's been very frustrating
there's some improvements that need to be made, to be fair.
That's a diplomatic way of putting it. I appreciate it. Mm-hmm. So this episode, I didn't do the whole, I didn't run all the commercials and everything. I just wanted a nice stripped down episode where we talked about this, but I do want to say we do have a new sponsor. I'll bring this all full circle. Justin DeVoe. I want to shout out to Justin DeVoe. We talked about him before and how he bared his soul on one of our prior episodes, but he's also one of our new sponsors. He's got a couple of ventures that he's a part of, and I want to mention them to people now, and you'll hear more proper commercials about them in the future. But he's on a podcast called Shadadigans. Jeremy, actually, I think you would appreciate this. It is just what it sounds like. It's a podcast by dads for dads. And they talk about a whole host of subjects. It's a lot of fun. I was a guest on one of the episodes, and it was I really had a blast with those guys.
Love that. I love that. Shadadigans.
And you can listen to it on all major podcast platforms. And then Justin is also a fitness enthusiast and a trainer and a cosplayer extraordinaire. And if you want to just look at what Justin's doing on those fronts, you can go to his Instagram page, Real Life Lobo. And if you're interested in potentially training or kind of taking it to the next level, Iron and Honor Fitness, also on Instagram. You can check out that page. They're still kind of building that out, but that's a good place to go. So Real Life Lobo and Iron and Honor on Instagram. And I want to thank Justin for his support.
Got to check out the main man. Now, will he train me with a cigar in my mouth?
I mean, I feel
is the question,
Yeah, that's a good. That I feel like in that case, there's the the sticking to the spirit of the character, but then there's also the health side, and I feel like they butt up against each other.
Now this is why you need to go to him for these questions and not to a mere mortal like myself. But yes, we ask the tough questions here on Digging for Kryptonite.
That's right. Very, very true. Well, Jeremy, thank you very much. I really enjoyed this. I appreciate everything that you shared, and I again, this was a really special one, and I'm so glad to have had you on for this one. So thank you.
Thank you, Anthony, for letting me be a part of it and for sharing your life and not only your Superman fan journey, but your real life journey with you and your family as well too. It's a story worth telling. So thank you for letting me and everybody listening be a part of it.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you to our audience. Make sure you come back in 1 week. Remember, this is an extra episode, so come back in 1 week as we discuss For Tomorrow with a real life pastor. I already recorded it. It's a really great, interesting episode. I hope people enjoy. And until then, remember, it's about what you do. It's about action.